Welcome to Inside Voices, a well-read magazine, Between the Pages podcast. I'm joined today by my dear friend and co-host, Jeffrey Dale Lofton. We're both so excited to enter into conversation today with best-selling author Deborah Goodrich Royce. Welcome, Deborah.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here with the two of you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming back. So, Deborah, before we get started, I'm going to share a little bit about you with our listeners. Deborah Goodrich Royce's literary thrillers examine puzzles of identity. Reef Road, a Publishers Weekly bestseller, was one of the best books of 2023 by Kirkus Reviews, an Indie Next pick by the American Booksellers Association, and one of Good Morning America's top 15 for January 2023. Ruby Falls won the Zibby Award for Best Plot Twist in 2021. Finding Mrs. Ford was held by Forbes, Book Riot, and Good Morning America's Best of lists in 2019. Her newest, Best Boy, will be published on February 24th, 2026. In addition to writing, her Ocean House author series brings world-class authors like Sarah Ferguson, Emma Straub, Chris Bohjalian, and Katie Couric to Watch Hill. With fellow authors Luanne Rice and Amy Scheibe, she created the Deer Mountain Writers Retreat in the Catskills. She began her career in the arts as an actress on All My Children and in multiple films before transitioning to the role of story editor at Miramax Films, developing Emma and early versions of Chicago and A Wrinkle in Time. With her husband Chuck, Deborah restored the Avon Theater, Ocean House Hotel, Deer Mountain Inn, United Theater, Martin House Books, and numerous Main Street revitalization projects in Rhode Island and the Catskills. Jeffrey?
Thank you, Robert. Deborah, it's so good to be with you again. Thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure. You are two of my favorite people and favorite writers, both together, which is a great combo.
We feel the same
Yeah.
about. So I'll have the first question. So will you just set up Best Boy for us?
So, Best Boy is a story of a woman, a young woman who lives a comfortable life in Greenwich, Connecticut, a life that she probably is controlling with a little bit of a white-knuckled grip. And she has, a perfect little son and a wonderful, handsome husband and a beautiful house. And, everything is just nice, nice, nice. And she receives a letter from a man who claims to have worked with her, to have been her best boy on a film that she did. Best boy is a job in a movie business, in the electrical department. And she doesn't remember him. And he goes on to enumerate all of these touch points that they shared. And she becomes increasingly panicked because she really doesn't remember any of them. And she's a woman, turns out, who has a flawed memory. She is a woman who also had a pretty horrific thing happen to her when she was in high school, after which she completely reinvented herself. So there are pieces of her past she doesn't examine too closely. But the question is, why is this man contacting her? Why now? Is he telling the truth? Or is he lying? And if he is lying, what does he want? And that's really kind of the cradle on which the story then takes off.
Thank you.
You give a wonderful elevator pitch. I would rather write an entire novel than have to summarize one.
Summarizing is so hard.
It is so challenging to get to the crux of a story. But within this book, you delve into how the world judges women, and an early event changes the trajectory of Ingrid's life, the way she looks, the way she sounds, the tenor of her relationships. However, one three-letter word coerced from her by those in authority further changes the course of her life and possibly had more of an impact on her than her altered face and voice. Without giving anything away, talk a little bit about that early turning point for her and how the world is often, in your opinion, unfair to the vulnerable, especially young women like Ingrid.
So I think young women, there was a wonderful book years ago called Reviving Ophelia about raising girls. And the author, I think her name was Mary Pfeiffer. I can't believe I retained that. She talks about how girls go from being really sort of the masters of their own universe, if you will. You know, they're like Harriet the Spy, little girls. They're out there exploring and discovering and seeing what's going on. And with the advent of puberty, they shut down often. And they go from being the subject of their own lives to the object of someone else's gaze. And it's a pretty depressing transition. I think culturally, when you're a young girl, you don't understand what a depressing transition it is often. And it sets girls slash women up for a terrible fall later. If they happen to have beauty, it can be even worse because they can learn to rely on it. So Ingrid as a girl is, you know, average looking, and she has this terrible thing happen to her where she ends up having to have plastic surgery and deciding to do a little bit more than maybe she needs to do. And she becomes quite a beauty and kind of an unrecognizable because of this thing that happened to her. Her voice also changes. Her vocal cords are damaged. So that is one seminal transition, this pivot that happens in her young life. But the other part of it, she's the victim of a sexual assault. You know that at the very beginning. Or you don't know if it's an assault. You don't know if it's consensual. You know that she's in pretty bad shape, but she doesn't remember what happened. So I think it's pretty common knowledge in our culture that it can be a brave and dangerous path to go down when something like that happens to you. The tables can be turned on a victim in a case like that. That's not exactly what happens to Ingrid. I'm cautious of saying too much, but in the face of repeated questioning by police, she waffles and waffles and waffles in her conviction. Her conviction is low to begin with because she doesn't remember what happened, but she's very manipulable because of that.
Deborah, it's really interesting your observations on, that transition from girlhood to young womanhood and how fraught it can be and how difficult it can be. But you've turned this into a thriller. Your stories are thrillers. You've become a go-to thriller writer for readers, and we've come to expect twists and identity changes, surprises. Your books are like a well-appointed haunted house. We know the surprises are coming. We just don't know how or when. How do you manage to do that, especially out of a story that has such serious underpinnings? How do you keep the tension going throughout the story?
Well, it's interesting that you say that. I think layers are definitely a part of it. But I had an editor say to me once in an early book, she said, "Now, what you have here is a layer cake. But what I want you to think about is braided bread. So you do need the layers, but you do have to braid them together." Another editor said to me, when you get to a point of a twist, you don't necessarily want your reader to have seen it coming, but when it comes, you want them to be able to say, "Oh, this is the breadcrumb trail, and I should have been able to see it." In this book, I had a twistier twist I was writing for a long while, but there came a point where I thought it just simply didn't hold together. I didn't think it was believable. And I know we probably shouldn't talk about the book we didn't write, but that it was a point for me where I thought that really isn't the point of all of it. I think we have plenty of twists in the story and plenty of surprises, but that one, the big one, which we can talk about, after people have read the book. I thought, oh, someone would just throw the book right across the room and say, oh, come on, you just come on.
I want to know what it is now.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
I can attest that there are plenty of twists and turns and surprises. So you didn't lose anything as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you.
so Deborah, do the twists come, do you begin to write the book and do they come to you organically, or do you sit and plot meticulously to have a sense of the arc for the character for Ingrid?
I certainly take a lot of notes, but my notes generally take the form of what if questions. Well, what if this is what's happening? No, well, what if that? And I explore those different threads in pages of notes. I would say one of the magical elements of writing a book is the factor of time, the passage of time. I find, and maybe you both do too, I mean, there's a reason you don't write a whole book in a day, even if you were physically capable of doing it, because there's something that happens when you're writing and then when you step away from it. There's a thought process, a reflection process, even I think when you're not always consciously aware that you're thinking about the book or the story, ideas come through. If you hold it, you can't just shut it out. You can't just exclusively, Google the Beckham wedding all day long. I mentioned that earlier because it was a crazy diversion today. But you have to hold what you're writing in this kind of semi-conscious place, because I think, writers always talk about solving problems in the shower or in those moments before falling asleep or just waking up from sleep. We're in a more meditative state. So I do definitely have things that come through then.
Yeah, I experienced the same thing. I think that the story is always with me. I'm always on the verge of thinking about it, even when I'm doing other things. And I do think that time away, I can have an intensive writing session on a Saturday and think that things really went well. And then Sunday just have these whole series of epiphanies. And yeah, so you're right. For me, it really happens organically in regards to, especially the emotional layering of a story. But time away, I think, is certainly very helpful for me.
And time at the computer, because that Saturday was probably necessary, the day that you were at it all day, to get the juices flowing, to get you to the point on Sunday where the epiphany comes. It might not have come without the whole day Saturday. It's this weird balance.
It is absolutely. You know, you I recently in a project covered themes of memory and identity, which I find fascinating. Best Boy also centers on these themes and what we choose or need to forget. What first, Deborah, sparked your interest in exploring these themes together in your novel?
There's a famous Japanese film by Akira Kurosawa. I think it was made in 1950, and it's called Rashomon. And it was, it's an art house favorite. If you studied film in college, everybody had to watch Rashomon. And it's a strangely stylized, a very weird film. But the essential story is there's a rape that happens in the forest. And there are three eyewitnesses who have seen this thing. And by the time you get to the trial, and these three eyewitnesses tell under oath what they've seen, they've each seen something completely different. And goodness, I mean, look at what's going on in the world today. People see political events, they see world events, they see car accidents, and one person doesn't necessarily see what another person sees. And what is that? I'm really fascinated by that. And is there an objective truth? If you had a camera on the scene. So I like exploring that. I was because I received a real email similar to the one that the character Vivica receives, a letter. She receives it in a letter. I received it in an email from a man, with all these telling about all these moments we shared, and I didn't remember him. He turned out to be a perfectly normal person. But I thought a lot about, I mean, I'm sure you both met people who say, oh, remember this thing in college or in high school. And sometimes you simply don't. And it's interesting.
Mhm.
Agreed. I think especially, I think that the gentleman that reached out to you probably felt closer to you in some way than you did to him, of course. You probably held a much more revered place, perhaps. And I think that happens. It's interesting the impact that we have on others that we're not quite aware of at the
Mm.
time.
Well, it's very
Yeah.
true. It's very Agatha Christie. You never
Yes.
know this idea that someone might be the center of a room at a certain moment, a movie star or a politician, but there might be someone in the crowd who's going to play a part in the story that the central person doesn't even notice.
Hmm.
Deborah, Vivica appears to have built this nearly perfect life, and I wonder, why was it important for you to place this psychological unraveling inside such a carefully constructed world, a perfect world?
I think it's a coping mechanism, certainly for the character. And maybe I would confess to having tried to use that coping mechanism a bit myself. My husband, who's a brilliant man and a successful and creative man, is, I can openly say this, a world-class Slav. Like, I can't even believe how slovenly he is, but he has this meticulously organized mind. And that really blew my mind when I first met him, because I'm, what's that saying, organized desk, organized mind. I think I've always tried to smooth out the edges and make everything pretty and nice. And so I liked writing. I think it's a technique that a lot of people try to employ. And
Is
for sure with her, yes.
is a way is writing a way that you personally sort of create a world that you can control, that you can construct?
That's a great question. Yes, the answer is yes. I write about what I believe are true things through the prism of fiction.
Mm.
I have used bits and pieces of my life, lives of people I know, experiences I've had, experiences my friends have had, but it is not always interesting. Nonfiction has to tell the whole story, and that's not always as interesting. Sometimes you want to get to the salient point.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think it is a way for me to explore philosophical concepts. I'm thinking about moral concepts,
Mhm.
um, very much so.
Sense of the world. Yeah, I totally get that.
So the novel, and going back to the topic of memory, the novel asks whether forgetting can be a form of self-protection or self-deception. Do you see memory as something we control or something perhaps that controls us?
Mm.
What do we focus on? I'm going to say something that sounds very flip, and it is flip, but I mean it to be funny. When my girls were teenagers and I was worried about one thing or another going on with them, and sometimes my husband, like right before going to bed, would start talking about, a major thing I was worried about. And I'd say, you know what? You need to kind of talk to me like I'm a Green Beret. Like, don't make any sudden moves. Don't alarm me before I get in the bed, just because I'm not going to sleep all night if you go down this path. And I don't mean to be flip about the Green Berets or the Navy SEALs, but I was letting him know I'm a little too tightly wired on this subject. I am not, for him, he could have a full conversation about it. and fall into a dead sleep. I needed to micromanage my psyche a little bit more. So that's kind of the same thing, right?
Great.
Moving on to a lighter topic, I have always loved your customized book club kits that you provide on your author site for each of your books. So I'm really curious to know what readers can look forward to for the Best Boy Book Club kit.
You can look forward to this interview, it with two of you being in it, because we did a written version last week, and so that's going in. There's always a letter from me, an interview I've done in the media somewhere. There's a list of questions for people to look at after they've read the book. There are printable bookmarks. There's a cocktail, but because Vivica is sober, it's a mocktail, and there's a playlist. So that was really fun because the book goes from 1998 to 2018. So it was kind of fun coming up with what I thought would be the soundtrack of her life. And it does include the Spice Girls and, oh, Britney Spears in their early part, and, goes on through a lot of different music.
Were these the songs you listened to while you were writing, or is this something you found because you knew it would be for Vivica?
I don't listen to music when I'm writing. When I have music on, I really listen to music. So it's hard for me to have music in the background.
Understood.
Music is so important to me, but I can't listen to it while I'm engaged in the act of writing. But I've actually, so I have a playlist of sorts, but I will listen to it before I begin to write to sort of get me in that emotional place, and then I'll turn it off. But it is, um, gosh, it is so helpful for me to be able to get to a place that I need emotionally to be able to write a character or to write a moment within the book. So music is so important, but I absolutely cannot have that level of noise while I am engaged in writing. I can have white noise, like I'll have Alexa play fireplace crackle in my office. I need to have that. I need to have that going. I need to have, it can't be utter silence for me. What about you, Jeffrey? Do you have to write in
I
complete silence?
love to listen to music, but not when I'm writing. If I go for a walk or if I'm, in the kitchen or something, I love to listen to it then, and it can help take me back, especially in time, sort of, to the point that the story takes place. It can remind you of things and people and smells and other things that represents that earlier time. But when I'm writing, I want it to be quiet. Well, I don't need Alexa's help. It's okay. I can make it on my own.
Do it on your own. Well, so part of enticing readers, of course, with book kits is obviously your cover as well. Beautiful cover.
Oh, I have the hardcover here now.
Got the hardcover.
Amen.
Ah,
And you
lovely.
see it has, you can't really tell, spot gloss. There's a letter here in a post box,
Mhm.
and there's an illuminated window, and those are spot gloss.
Very nice.
It's a moody cover.
It's
Yeah,
very moody. Do you, with your publisher, do you have a significant amount of say in your cover design?
I do. Yes, I've been a real part of the conversation, which I'm very happy to say. Have you both had that?
Um,
I we're with the same publisher, of course, Deborah, and I was able to have quite a bit of say in my cover as well.
That's good.
so I am terrified of two things, death and an ugly book cover. Um, so I had significant amount of say with the first book. The second book I was with with the new publisher that I'm really excited about, Mercer University Press, and within the contract they say, we would love for you to share maybe a couple of images. And of course, at the end of the day, we'll make the final decisions. But I shared images with them, and I was holding my breath. And Jeffrey, you know how anxious I've been about it. But when I got the cover back, I was just ecstatic. So it's fascinating to have
Yeah, I
someone
love it. I'm
interpret
going to
your
look at it
book.
again. I love
Thank you.
your cover. I'm going to pull it up on my phone. I love both of your covers.
Jeffrey's is beautiful, as well, Red Clay Susie.
Love that.
But they're so important. They say don't judge a book by the cover, but everyone does, and it's
We
so
do.
critical, I think, with so many wonderful books and so many choices for readers to be able to get their
That's
attention.
beautiful.
There you go. Thank you. I'm proud of it. I'm very
Yeah, you
excited about
should
it.
be. You should be.
Thrilled about it. So you got we talked a little bit about your book club kit and your lovely cover. Um, has promoting books gotten easier for you um
Wait,
since
I
your
have to show
debut?
Jeffrey's cover. I just
Sure.
have to show this, which is also stunning.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
So has it gotten easier? In some ways, yes. In some ways, so very early on with my first book, um, I was encouraged, and I think rightly so, to talk about my life a lot, this trajectory and all these things I'd done before I came to writing novels at a later age. And I'm feeling now like I don't want to so much do the whole dog and pony show about my life because that's like enough of me. Um, so yeah, it's going to be interesting going on tour for this book because what I'm hoping to do is talk more just about the book, but we'll see how it goes. I mean, I'm flexible.
Yeah. Well, I don't believe that we have asked you or will ask you one question about your life before being a writer.
Well, you can if you want.
No. But we already know so much about you because Jeffrey and I have had an opportunity to spend a
That's
little
right.
bit of time with you, which brings me to the next question. In addition to being an author, you spend a lot of time supporting fellow writers. You host the Ocean House Author Series, which we mentioned previously, and the Deer Mountain Writers Retreat that Jeffrey and I both have had an opportunity to participate in. Talk a little bit about these programs and how they came to be and how you are supporting your literary community.
So the Ocean House Author Series came first, and it was really unintended. My first book came out in 2019. We have a house in Watch Hill where the Ocean House is. We own the Ocean House. I did a little book talk there. A couple of other local writers that summer who had books come out did a little book talk there. 2 years later, I had my next book. And Susie Stanglin, a social media guru that I work with, and I think you've worked with her, right, Jeffrey?
The name again, I didn't hear what you
Susie
said.
Stanglin, maybe not. No,
I
you have,
don't.
okay. Anyway, she said to me, you need to host a series. I said, oh, no, I'm not going to host a series. She said, yes, you need to. And she was very insistent, and she was absolutely correct. So in 2021, we launched the first summer series, and it's grown and it's expanded. This is our 6th year of it. I just uh, booked Jenna Bush Hager to come because she is a publishing imprint, and she has 2 authors that she wanted me to interview. So she's coming along with them. So it's really grown and expanded, and it's helped me connect to a vast collection of writers across the United States that I might not have. The Deer Mountain Writers Retreat came about. I was on book tour a few years ago, talking with Amy Scheibe and Luanne Rice, and everybody was longing to find a clear runway to write, a time and space. And we spent a lot of time thinking about what's the right amount of time and this and that and the other thing. I think we've come up with a very good formula. It's Sunday to Friday. You have every day, you can have your breakfast and lunch delivered, and you can just write all day, but you have very diverting evenings with other authors and no obligation to lead workshops or teach or lecture or do anything like that. So it's turned out to be really what we wanted and what I think a lot of other writers have responded to.
Yeah, it's such a nurturing experience, connecting with other writers and spending time with them that, we spend so much time alone at our computers and our little offices, and It really does sort of get the juices flowing. A lot of creativity, a lot of words get put on paper or on computer during those days.
And it's a forum where I think you come to realize very quickly there's no pecking order in this writing world. Somebody might show up who's, publishing 2 books a year. Somebody else might show up who publishes a book every 10 years. And everybody has kind of the same or parallel sets of frustrations and dreams and questions. And there's a very convivial and sharing spirit.
Agreed. And you might be hearing my dog Truman in the background. It seems that someone might be delivering a package, so I do apologize.
That's all right.
But we had a lovely time, Deborah. I think Jeffrey was there at the inaugural retreat, and I had an opportunity to join in spring, and it was lovely. And one of the things that, as you shared, it's a very diverse group of writers, and some more seasoned who've been at it for a while. And one of the common threads is that we all remain vulnerable.
We all remain vulnerable, which is the human thread too.
Exactly. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for letting me enter and be a part of your writing community. It certainly is a privilege.
Well, it's a privilege for me too. Thank you.
Well, we are at the end of our time together, Deborah. It's gone by so quickly. But thank you so much for joining Jeffrey and me, and we wish you every success with Best Boy.
Thank you both. You are just a delight, and I'm honored to have been here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The gentle listeners, until next time, for Inside Voices, I'm Robert Gwaltney.
And I'm Jeffrey Dale Lofton. And remember, to be creative is to be courageous. Thanks for joining us.